Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ernest Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. The college football coaching carousel has already begun with tons of coaches getting hired and fired across the country. But one thing that's a little bit crazier than the coaching carousel is the transfer portal carousel in college football. And it's now starting to begin because we have our first big transfer. Texas A&M transfer quarterback Mack Johnson has committed to the North Carolina Tar Heels. I'm going to break down this transfer and talk about why I think that this could work out for North Carolina or why it might not, and why Mack Johnson is already transferred to North Carolina even before the transfer portal window has started, because I've seen that some people are questioning that. How come Mack Johnson is already in the portal? We have a lot to break down and cover on this transfer portal edition for North Carolina, so let's get into it. Now, a big reason why Mack Johnson was already able to transfer, because someone said in the replies that the portal isn't even open yet for him to transfer, but you can transfer if your coach gets fired before the portal opens. That's what I responded with, and that is true because Jimbo Fisher was fired at Texas A&M, and the NCAA allows players to leave a program within a 30-day window after a coach gets fired. So that's why Mack Johnson was already able to enter the portal. That's why Mack Johnson was already able to transfer to another program. There's a lot of other quarterbacks and players that are transferring from other teams where their coach has been fired. Brendan Sorsby, the starting quarterback for Indiana, and Dexter Williams for Indiana as well, another quarterback, are both in the portal right now because Tom Allen got fired. So that's why Mack Johnson was legally able to do this, even though the portal has not opened yet. But a lot of people are also talking about, is Mack Johnson a good addition for North Carolina? This is what I tweeted out. I said, I don't think Mack Johnson is a bad addition for UNC. He is a step down from Drake Maye, but most college quarterbacks are. If Mack Johnson can limit his turnovers for the Tar Heels, then I think he could be a serviceable quarterback for UNC next season. I think he could even be better than that, because you look at Mack Johnson. A lot of people do not think Mack Johnson is a good college quarterback, but a lot of people seem to forget what he did at LSU. In the 2021 season, yes, he went 6-6 as a starting quarterback, and that was the year that Ed O got fired at LSU, but he was 225 of 373 for 2,814 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 6 picks. Those are really good stats. If he put those numbers up on an LSU team that went 10-2, nobody would have said Mack Johnson was a bad quarterback, but he went 6-6, and that's why no one thinks that he's a good quarterback. So then he transferred to Texas A&M, played a little bit in 2022 with 3 touchdowns and no picks, but then he did get banged up and could not play anymore. But then in 2023, he played in 8 games for the Aggies and started 5 of them with a 2-3 record, and he threw 9 touchdowns to 5 picks, and he had 1,452 passing yards. So that was a bit of a step down. But over his career, he has 47 touchdowns, 12 picks, and 5 rushing touchdowns. So that's 52 total touchdowns and 12 interceptions. You cannot beat that. That is some of the best numbers that anybody could put up in the sport. Yes, he needs to make sure that he has more passing yards per game, because that is something he struggled with at Texas A&M, but he was not behind the best offensive line, and the SEC is a tough conference going up against the best competition in the world, and he hasn't been the healthiest the last couple years. If he can get healthy over this offseason with his transfer to North Carolina, and you're going to be going to an easier conference, then I think that a lot of people will start to warm up to him a bit more, because you look at what Drake Maye did. It is going to be hard to replace what Drake Maye did. He threw 63 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, and he had 16 rushing touchdowns, and he had a 17-9 record as the North Carolina Tar Heel quarterback. 79 total touchdowns and 16 picks is better than Mack Johnson's 52 touchdowns to 12 picks. And Drake Maye's more dynamic with his legs, whereas Mack Johnson is not much of a runner, which is something that is going to be interesting to see for North Carolina, because their offensive line has not been the best the past few seasons, and they're going to have to get better in that regard if Mack Johnson is going to have success. But North Carolina has had good running backs lately. Their wide receiver room is pretty solid. But the reason why North Carolina was not better than 17-9, even with Drake Maye, is because of that defense. I think a lot of people, when looking at Mack Johnson and wondering if he can succeed at the North Carolina Tar Heels, and a lot of people in the replies, if you look at what some people are saying, this person said solid pickup. Another person, that was fast. Big loss for Mack. UNC is bad. Another person said he's going to get his 3rd coach fired. It was a good run, Mack. This person said doesn't make sense. He transferred to North Carolina to be a backup quarterback and stay on the bench. No way Coach Mack is going to play him over Drake Maye. But that's the thing. Drake Maye should be gone. I know he is not declared for the draft yet, but he's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft if he leaves, which he is eligible for the draft. And this is why this transfer makes sense for Max Johnson. Drake Maye, I do not see him coming back to North Carolina. He should go to the NFL draft, and I would not blame him if he left. He's a redshirt sophomore, but you are eligible for the NFL draft when you are a redshirt sophomore. Dwayne Haskins left the Ohio State Buckeyes as a redshirt sophomore. Rest in peace to Dwayne Haskins, but that's just an example. Drake Maye should leave North Carolina. He is going to be a top pick. And Max Johnson, looking at his stats, as I've already showed you what he has done as a college quarterback, he's not a bad player. His stats speak for themselves. 47 touchdowns, 12 picks. The record is why no one thinks he's good. 12-10 record as a college QB, but he's in the SEC. A lot of people said Bo Nix was terrible at Auburn, and look what Bo Nix did when he went to Oregon. He's lighting it up. He could win the Heisman this year. So sometimes you have to leave the SEC. I know that some people would say, if you can't win in the toughest conference in college football, then you're not a good quarterback. But sometimes there's just too many things working against you, especially if you're not on the best team in the world. And everybody said Jimbo Fisher was not running the best team in the world at Texas A&M. And when Max Johnson was at LSU, that was after the Joe Burrow season. They did not have as much talent. He was getting stacked left and right. I believe that if Max Johnson is at North Carolina behind a decent O-line, North Carolina's O-line has to get better, and they've had a good offense for the past few years, so that should continue next year. North Carolina's going to win games. The ACC is not as strong of a conference. What Mack Brown has to do to make Max Johnson a really solid quarterback is to give him a good defense, because if North Carolina has a good defense next season, they can win 10 games. Why did Iowa win 10 games this year? They have no quarterback play at all whatsoever. K. McNamara, Deacon Hill, Spencer Petras. It doesn't matter who has been the quarterback for the Iowa Hawkeyes. And K. McNamara is actually a decent quarterback. He had no success on offense with the Hawkeyes, but they still won 10 games because they were in the Big Ten West, which was an easier side of the division of the Big Ten, and their defense was insane. North Carolina had a Heisman candidate quarterback the last 2 years in Drake Maye, and they could not win more than 9 games. They went 9-5 and 8-4 in the 2 seasons that they had Drake Maye. Drake Maye should have had a better record than that. Look at Caleb Williams at USC. They didn't win more than 7 games this year in the regular season with Caleb Williams, who's one of the best quarterbacks in college football. So for Max Johnson, people are saying he's bad because his record as a college QB is terrible and the fact that he has had some injuries. But if he can get healthy and Max Johnson is playing for a North Carolina team in an easier conference, and if they can get a better defense, this North Carolina team can still win 9 or 10 games with Max Johnson. If their defense is terrible, though, then they're going to go 6-6 or 7-5, and people are still going to blame Max Johnson for all of the losses. But I think that people's dislike toward him as a bad quarterback in college football is overrated. He is a solid quarterback, and I believe, like I said in my tweet, that even though he's not going to be Drake Maye, he can still be a good quarterback for the North Carolina Tar Heels next season. But it is up to Mack Brown to improve the rest of the North Carolina roster and give Max Johnson a better defense and the same amount of weapons on offense with an improved offensive line. And maybe the Tar Heels could be better even without Drake Maye. Because like I said, Drake Maye was a fantastic quarterback, but he did not win more games because of the fact that the Tar Heels just had too many weaknesses, especially at O-line and defense. He should be off to the NFL. Max Johnson's coming in. This is the first big domino to fall in the transfer portal, and there's going to be many more to come. So I'm definitely going to be keeping track of the transfer portal in college football and all these coaching moves as well, and report them when the news comes in. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about Max Johnson transferring to the North Carolina Tar Heels, and whether you think, like me, that he actually is a good quarterback that has unfortunately just been on teams that he was not really able to have success. And if you think, based on his stats and what he did at LSU and Texas A&M, that he can translate that over to North Carolina in the ACC, and if you think that if North Carolina gets a better defense next year, that they can have possibly more success. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.